The MoneroTopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Exolix, a privacy-focused, non-custodial instant crypto exchange. Go to exolix.com to enjoy secure and completely anonymous swaps with no KYC or sign-up. Swap between Monero and 2,000 plus assets at the most competitive rates and with no limits. Exolix.com, your fast and secure way to privacy.
Morning, gentlemen.
Yo,
What's
GM
up?
Body.
Morning,
It's
buddy.
been a minute. I think I haven't been on here for like a month.
Yeah, welcome back.
You've been on the road.
Let's
Oh, by the way,
see.
this shirt was purchased at PorkFest with Monero.
Very nice.
Sorry, I'm getting a couple of extra things set up here. Okay, ready to go now. Yeah, how was I came on the show a bit late. How was MoneroCon?
Tux.
He's eating. I could hear the I can hear the fork and the plate in the background.
He said it was awesome. Similar
Oh,
crowd
there
to
we go.
last year. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to unplug my microphone so I could tighten it back around the mount. It got loose. Yeah, it was good. It was similar to last year. Felt pretty much the same. Same people for the most part, but it was fine. It went pretty well.
Cool. Interesting dev stuff going on. All the stuff we already know about mostly.
Yeah, like nothing. There was some interesting talks I need to go back and listen to. Like there was one about Greece, which is
Yes,
an
I had
L2.
him on.
Yeah,
Yesterday,
you
by the
actually
way.
had him on the show recently. So there were some interesting dev stuff. I don't think there was much on FCP++. I'll have to go look back and see what was uploaded.
I think Justin Ernhofer gave like a good talk on the status.
Oh, really?
At least that's what he was
Justin
in.
E?
That's what he was in the schedule for. I
Oh,
didn't see
okay.
the talk, but
I'll have
that's-
to. Well, I mean, he wasn't there. Maybe it was remote.
Oh, okay. Must have been remote. Okay.
Cool.
Interesting. And then Body Park Fest was definitely a success as well. I don't know if you heard all that jazz, but it was.
Yeah, I heard you were able to get a moment with Ross. That's cool.
Yeah.
I was
It was
thinking,
great.
the other thing too is like he's got a lot of Bitcoin. Like even if he wasn't able to figure out a way to save something from the Silk Road, he has a lot of Bitcoin just from donations. So
Yeah.
he's definitely a high profile, like kind of rich list guy already.
Yeah, they
So
sent
he's got a
him
bunch
30
of
mil, right? Which is what I wanted to say on stage if I was supposed to go on right like after him, and I was gonna try to say it in the right way, but like, it might have been better if they sent you some Monero instead of 30 mil of Bitcoin, right? In terms of privacy and security, right? Because he had his donation address up there, and now as the incident happened, it was like, look, they sent Ross $30 million. Like.
That's
Not-
true,
not
but
i-
also
not
maybe
ideal.
not, because at least they can see on chain and be like, well, this doesn't look like it came from. I mean, like everything came from Silk Road or through Silk Road at some point, but not recently at least. So it maybe.
What do you say?
Maybe it's better that he got it on a transparent. What I'm saying is that maybe it's better he got it on a transparent chain, because if a bunch of money had showed up in Monero, they might have asked like, well, where did this come from, and did you manage to hide some Silk Road coins, et cetera, et cetera. Now he's got a full pardon, so I guess that shouldn't matter, but still, it's like you just don't
Yeah,
want
it
to.
shouldn't matter. I mean, I'm allowed to get donations, right? And I'll just say somebody donated it to me.
A lot of things shouldn't matter, but
Receiving Bitcoin, he could be like, yo, this was genuinely a donation. This has nothing to do with the Silk Road. You can check the chain analysis on it if you want. There's not too many cases necessarily where it might be better to receive transparent coin, but it's kind of like Arctic Mind says. He's like, listen, get on the exchange and buy your clean Bitcoin off the exchange, and then there's no question later on when you need to cash out.
Yeah.
So it's
Although
like
we definitely don't want to normalize that because
not at all.
that should not be the way.
It's unfortunate that that's
Yeah.
the case, but
Yeah.
I mean that all these laws, as you guys well know, like they're not designed to stop terrorists or stop crime. They're all designed to limit your freedom at the KYC, AML, with the pretext of AML.
Exactly. Tux, did you run the clip? You did, right?
what clip? The price report?
The intro?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
Okay. I wasn't paying attention. All right, buddy. Yeah, take it away. I gotta fix my microphone over here, and then we'll get the special guest up right after.
Cool. All right, yeah, we're looking at the Monero chart here. Let me get the screen sizing. Okay, so we're still kind of in the pullback phase after having the big shoot up here from the thing that we all know about. Like we said, that was basically going to happen at some point. The price was just ready to go. Like there was just higher lows all the way up, and something was gonna cause it. So, yeah, things are still kind of pulling back. I guess you could say, if we wanted to try and be TA monkeys, we could say that that's a level, a spot. But I also would have said that this was a level in a spot as well. So, um, yeah, I mean, right now, crypto in general is not making huge movements towards the upside, although stocks seem to be recovering quite nicely. We'll get there in a second. Honestly, I have no opinion about where the Monero price might go at the moment. Probably this is a reasonably good spot to expect to bounce. I think there's a good chance that the consolidation phase is getting closer to an end. And so if Bitcoin is going to move towards the upside and with stocks pumping right now, there's a good chance that crypto is going to start following suit soon. So yeah, maybe Monero can make it back up here to that 360 level in the coming, I don't know, let's just say 4 weeks, 1 to 4 weeks. So it wouldn't surprise me if things shoot up here. It might not, right? It doesn't have to over the next week, but it could. We're starting to enter that window where we could reasonably start to see some rebound on the price action. 350, 380, whatever, something like that. With the Monero Bitcoin price, you can see that we're kind of pulling back, right? Monero's been pulling back relative to Bitcoin and is currently sort of occupying this band structure right here. Normally, again, you would say, hey, that should be a spot for support, but again, I'm just never super convinced that I'm never super convinced that Monero's price action is uh, as reliable on the statistical metrics as some other stuff tends to be. And obviously, because I do think there's still fuckery. There's still while it's hard for them to print any more paper Monero and sell it on Binance, for example, it's still possible to do little fuckery things with the price, and that's just the name of crypto. Like that's what they just do in crypto in general. But with Monero especially, it seems like. Anyways, yeah. So it's really not too surprising, right? We talked about this horizontal level where we have to go to the weekly to see why this level is important. But oops, my rolling wheel mouse is still rolling. Okay, yeah. So you can see obviously like that's the level that was where Monero versus Bitcoin sort of bottomed out at the last bull market, right? When they pumped the shit out of Bitcoin and they print a bunch of Tether, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, that was the level that things bottomed out. And of course, coming back to that level from the underside is gonna face some pretty stiff resistance there. So that's kind of what happened. Things are pulling back. That doesn't mean the show is over. Hypothetically, things could go up. Although I would say if we're looking for a bullish crypto market, right? If everyone's still got their fingers crossed, hoping and praying for that bull market, and it happens, right? Then that liquidity is going to hit Bitcoin and the other cryptos first, and Monero will sort of get the hand-me-down liquidity after the fact. So yeah, I mean, the other thing too here with the technical analysis on this chart, we would look at this and say, hey, this level, you're hoping it will hold as support, and then it broke down, and now it's like, yeah, that's a little bit dubious at this moment. Maybe this very bottom, the very, very bottom of the upper standard deviation bands, maybe that could hold reasonably well. But again, that's just like tea leaves speculation. It's not exactly something you would take to the bank. Especially when it comes to statistical levels, you have to trade them statistically. How strong is the signal? How much do you want to scale in slowly, and then scale out slowly, right? You find your best ripe opportunities. And I wouldn't I wouldn't necessarily say that this right here is your best statistically ripe opportunity. So anyways, it's a bunch of waffling, right? A bunch of back and forth, but hey, it is what it is. So I guess I was watching this like recently. KuCoin is diverging towards the downside relative to Kraken, but that happened like as of the past 10 minutes while you guys like since the show started. So yeah, I don't know what KuCoin's up to.
Whoa, that's
It's not as big as it seems, right? If we go back,
Oh, we scroll a
you
little
can
bit.
see
Yeah.
there's significantly more, but it's not small either. We're on the 5-minute chart here, so the only way to really see this reasonably well is to go to narrow time frames, because when you do the calculation, it's measured by either the open, the close, the high, or the low. So we could select any one of those on the inputs, Do I have that? I thought I had a. Maybe I
To be
didn't.
fair, that's not unlikely for KuCoin.
Yeah, like it's honestly, it's really not that much, and this is also the volume weighted price divergence. So let's check out the actual like when we remove the volume adjustment. I bet it's not that much. Maybe, yeah, it just basically goes away. So either they're not doing much volume, or sorry, what's happening is they're a little bit price divergence, and someone's probably moving a bunch of volume on KuCoin at this particular moment. And then Poloniex looking schizophrenic as always. Okay, let's go to the privacy altcoins. I have Tari World down here, which isn't a privacy coin. I actually don't know. Maybe it is, but I have no idea what the hell it is. It's just there as a placeholder to remind me to come over here so we can look at Tari's price because I don't think it's, I still haven't found it listed on any exchange that I could find on TradingView. So anyways, we could just use CoinGecko. And yeah, I guess they're still looking, hoping, praying for some sort of comeback.
What a shit coin.
Yeah, I mean, too much pre-mine. Like, I can tolerate a reasonable pre-mine. Like 10%, I'm like, yeah. You know, if you said 15%, I'd be like, well, for you, Fluffy, you know, we could make an exception. But at 30 or whatever the percents are of the
Really
pre-mine,
pushing it.
yeah, it was a little bit, it was a little much. Maybe
When do Paris Hilton's coins unlock?
Yeah, yeah. When does she start dumping? I don't know. She's so rich. Maybe she doesn't need to dump. Like, there was this guy, y'all might have heard of his name, Mr. Hart. He one of the things he says, he's like, listen, whales are great for the price. You don't even realize it. Whales are really great for the price because they're already rich. They don't need to dump on you. They're willing to hold and see their investment go up and up because they don't have to sell. It's the plebs that are bad for price. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it seemed like there might have been a kernel, right? There could be a kernel of truth in that. So anyways, yeah, Tari's still looking to make a comeback here on the price. I'm sure that it will at some point. You know, the question is when. I don't know. Hopefully not until I get around to buying a bag from someone that's been merge mining it. I'll let you know. I'll let you know when the Tari price can start going up. Actually, that's so taking a step back. You know, it's actually not an uncommon pattern to see a coin launch pump, right? So Tari made something like a 4x, maybe like a 3x out of the pump, out of their first pump, and then to pull back, right, significantly. And it's only been a month, right? It's slightly more than a month. It's a common pattern to see a coin launch, pump bigly, pull back, sometimes even lower than its launch price, and then at some points in the future, you know, people start to get interested, liquidity comes in, or some you know, something happens right in the market, and then people actually end up buying it. So you know, I it's hard to think that any of that pre-mine is just getting dumped on the market. You know, like it's difficult to believe that. So I don't exactly know what this downward price action is made out of, but you know, it's not like this is not a high liquidity market. So even small amounts of purchasing or getting listed on an exchange, for example, could shoot that price up. So yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's not over. Don't pack it in, boys. It's, you know, you're still fine. Just like if you've got some Tari and you're like wanting to make a 10x out of that, you know, there's still plenty of opportunity there, especially if you buy now. So not to try and be a advertisement for for Ricardo, but or for Tari, but yeah. Anyways, okay. So here is Xano. Everyone speculating about Xano. I guess technically, you know, they have like assets on their chain, and Tari is still working on getting some like fundamental contracts built out or something like that. I guess I don't know. So maybe for all those people that are out there trading private memes, private non-fungible tokens, you know, maybe Xano's still the chain for them. I don't know. Interesting. It did actually kind of obey this standard deviation level, kind of tagged exactly in that range you would expect to find some support. So yeah, it's moving towards the upside now, especially here with Xano. You know, after such a big movement, regardless of whether it wants to go up and set a new high or it just, you know, dumps because I don't know, Tari's on the verge of releasing their own private NFTs. Who knows? I don't know if they are on the verge of that, right? Just hypothetically. Anyways, before it does anything, I would expect it to range and just sort of consolidate in the obvious zone there. Other than that, make your own conclusions about Xano. You're welcome, Xano, for for covering you guys after you yelled at me on Twitter for accidentally comparing. I was trying to do for typing
what is
X and
this?
O. They were upset because I typed in XNO, which is nano, not
Nano.
Xano. And I mean, I don't know. I guess why would it be XNO? Like I don't know. I guess because X is Z sometimes. Whatever.
Well, X used to be used as the first letter of the tier. Right. It was like Bitcoin, BTC used to be XBT, and
Yeah, it's weird. They shouldn't. I mean, I guess it makes sense to have like forged your own unique path as BTC, but I mean, if you're trying to be a currency, like you kind of, I don't know, keeping the X moniker seems reasonable, but I don't know, whatever. Okay, we're looking here at Pirate Chain. Pirate Chain doing nothing, consolidating below its below support. So that's not exactly the greatest sign, but whatever. Maybe, hopefully, if some of you guys are looking for a Hail Mary, maybe you'll get it. Probably not yet. Wait till the liquidity comes into the market, right? Wait till, I don't know, JPAL lowers rates or something. Fuck, I don't know, guys. All right, Zcash. Zcash hasn't done much either. Had a little pump, pulling back. These movements, again, like we talked about, Zcash makes pretty big movements, right? That's 90%, almost 100% movement since April, right? From like April or March into May, it made 100% movement to the upside. So I'm going to say that probably this is a combination of low liquidity on Zcash and, I don't know, probably just some kind of background fuckery, right? Some kind of like corporate wheeling and dealing. That's speculative, but I think we have enough heuristics out there to speculate that Zcash has some kind of corporate something going on with the exchanges. So call me a conspiracy theorist if you want. I don't care. That's what I am anyways. Okay, so Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the one everyone cares about, right? Big daddy coin, abusive daddy coin. And it actually did this like crazy thing this week where it came down, like it just crashed, spiked down, and then it came back up. So I don't know, guys. Like we talked about this level right here. Said, hey, this is kind of an important level. It's a support level, support zone. And it basically it was, and then it crashed down, and but then it came right back. So that's what I mean by like kind of the scammy nature of crypto. This was probably to wash people out, to make it look like it was, because that looks terrible. Like that doesn't look like great price action, but at the same time, I think the stock market was actually going up. So I don't see any fundamental reasons for why Bitcoin has to crash, other than all of the fundamental reasons we've talked about since forever. But there are other fundamental reasons, right? There's price support, and no one wants to see Bitcoin crash. That's enough reason for it to keep up with the stock market, basically. So we've effectively talked about consolidation, right? The past couple of weeks, the title of the segment here has been consolidation, sideways kind of stuff. So that's pretty much what we've gotten. We're still we're still seeing this constrained volatility, although this guy kind of really adds in a bunch of volatility. But we're still kind of looking at this sort of more or less constrained price action. We're looking for this thing to pounce towards the upside at some point here, if stocks keep rolling towards the upside. And I think there's every reason to expect that next month. So I think let's just say the next 2 to 4 weeks, the federal court should hear the appeal from the Trump administration about striking down the tariffs. Hopefully, they won't become more powerful than ever. But right now they're struck down, but there's emergency relief. So they're still in place because the court sort of defers to saying, well, let's, whatever the executive said, let's, just do that. Now, that's different from Chevron, but it's kind of against the spirit of Chevron. If you think about it, it's like, well, you shouldn't just defer to the executive, but they kind of do get deference because like, well, we don't want to screw something up, I guess, if, the executive is like executing and so let's just keep them in place for stability or whatever. And so everyone's like looking like, okay, yeah, they'll probably strike them down. They'll probably keep them down. The appeal will fail. And so the Trump's tariffs will lose at least a portion of them. And then, the markets can move on to greater glory. I know we're still kind of on crypto, but why don't we just like start, why don't we stop here and do our typical lead into the macro concepts that are going on. So I've been going on feels lately, and the name of the game for the market, if you're a trader for the past 6 months, has been news trading. Really, like ever since the Bitcoin president on November 4th started becoming obvious and apparent. It was apparent and obvious before that, but anyways, when it became super obvious and apparent, the news cycle is what crypto is trading on since then, particularly Bitcoin. And also, I mean, also like oil and commodities and stocks and everything. And it's all news based. It's like they say some new thing, tariffs, not tariffs, tariffs, not tariffs. Okay, Liberation Day. No, just kidding. Only a little bit of liberation. And then, okay, the tariffs got struck down, but no, they're still in place. No, but actually, we're going to move the court date up. And the point is that overall, like, it's been news cycle trading, and right now the feels on the market, the intuition on the market is that no one wants to think this game is over. Everyone wants the market to keep going, including myself, right? Like, I don't want to see, I mean, I kind of want to see a macro crash, but at this point, it's like, what I wanted to see was the macro crash happen along the timelines that were looking ripe and juicy, right? And then we did get it. I mean, 20% down. Let's just go to stocks. Why not? 20% down on stocks is no joke. So that, I mean, really, that kind of was a big macro crash, but then they backstopped it, and they got rid of the tariffs. The big thing, the headliner thing that I want to draw out here is that it feels a lot to me like they're using the news cycle to induce fear in the markets. There's some limited pullback, and then they remove the fear from the markets, and then everyone's even more giddy than they were before, right? I know it's weird. I mean, yeah, there's always a little bit of extra liquidity, kind of consistently coming into the markets with the expansion of M2 money, although the Fed is still selling off their balance sheet, which is primarily mortgages, and mortgages are, you can actually see that in the housing prices, and the way that the Fed has been selling off its balance sheet. And this right here is single family homes, and you'll notice that since 3 years ago, 2022, it's barely, housing prices have barely been able to increase. That's probably a good thing. Things were just kind of getting out of hand there. So yeah, the Fed has been selling off their balance sheet again, which is primarily these mortgage-backed securities they acquired a decade and a half ago, to prop the markets up. Anyways, the point is that it does feel a lot to me like they are using the news cycle to sort of like, it's like the drama cycle. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever had a drama girlfriend or if that's just being redundant, but it's like, if there is no drama, it will be manufactured so that feelings can happen, and then the resolution at the end leaves you in a better state, a more fulfilled and satisfied state than before the drama had happened and the boredom was basically just there, right? So I know that's kind of a retarded autistic analogy, but that's kind of what's happening with the markets at the moment. It feels to me, again, feels over reals, seems to be the name of the game for markets lately, but it's the induction of some kind of drama cycle, and then the resolution of that, or at least some partial resolution, and everyone breathes a sigh of relief, and the markets come back up. So I guess pivoting towards the macro here, this is the S&P 500, and this is why I tell you guys, always understand the chart that you're looking at, and understand the bias that chart holds. When it comes to stocks, the bias is up. You always say, well, I don't know, as the TA says, it's kind of even. It's not even. If the TA is even, then it's up. So that's why we talked about, like, okay, this is definitely a consolidation zone to expect, but with an upward bias, right? At some point, this thing is likely to start moving towards the upside, and that's what we got this past week. So, and same thing for the NASDAQ. It also pumped to the upside. So NASDAQ starting to look kind of juicy here. Maybe it needs a little bit of pullback. Like, it wouldn't be surprising to try and set those levels right here, to set that as some kind of support, some interim support, and then maybe go towards the upside, or things could just shoot up for no reason at all. So yeah, crypto's still consolidating, but stock markets showing strength. So at some point, you should see some liquidity slop happen between the two. You should get some movement into Bitcoin. Actually, what we'll do here in a second is take a look at the NASDAQ versus Bitcoin. Okay, NVIDIA also looking prime at the moment, right? After some period of consolidation and the liberation scare, we've decided to be unliberated, and NVIDIA, the defense stock now, which is totally a defense stock. Just like Boeing produces airplanes for commercial purposes, and so does NVIDIA produce consumer grade GPUs. It's also a big deal for the military industrial complex at this point, because they have so much data. It's insane. They're just awash in data. The world is awash in data, and we don't know how to analyze it all. And they're still coming up with new ways every day, every week, every month to analyze data in new kinds of ways. And that is, AI and big data, et cetera. So NVIDIA is a defense stock at this point. Okay, let's take a look at, let's go over here and look at Bitcoin versus the NASDAQ. BTC USD divided by NDX. Actually, no, BTC USD divided by, it's not ES1. I can't remember what the ticker is called. Let's go over here and figure it out. How can I forget this? NQ1, of course, it's NQ1. NASDAQ, so of course, it would start with an N. NQ1. Yeah, that's it. Sorry, dead air. Terrible dead air on the horn here.
I'm bored tuning out already.
I should have set this up beforehand, but I just kind of got the wild hair that maybe we should look at this. Actually, this doesn't look too much different than the Bitcoin versus the US dollar chart, although it probably looks a little bit more bullish on the daily time frame, right? So you can see effectively these standard deviations have curved up here. We're kind of seeing these guys, and it's sort of like riding in this channel. Let's turn on the purple lines. Maybe that'll help us with a little bit more resolution. The purple lines are basically, they help you establish solid bull market channels. Currently, everything looks pretty good with these purple lines, and like the notion of bull markets, effectively, you've got these sort of funnels created. Although usually you'll get this sort of funnel action and you'll end up on the top side of it. So, in a lot of ways, like the guys that are all like, oh, they're printing the paper Bitcoin, they're right about one thing, not the paper Bitcoin, but they're right about just the feel of Bitcoin isn't nearly as bullish as it used to be. Like we're still waiting. By this time last year, we'd already had the blow off, the blood in the streets, the recovery, the promise of recovery. Like there was quite the roller coaster that had already happened at this point in the cycle last time, and everyone's kind of sitting here scratching their heads, being like, well, I mean, we got some new highs, but we're not even 50% above the previous all-time high. So they're kind of right about feeling slightly anemic on the price, but hey, that's what diminishing returns are made of. That's why people keep talking about them, like me, talking about diminishing returns. Like you have entered the moment, the period, the cycle, the extended cycle, the forever cycle of diminishing returns, and then you're just at some point gonna match the NASDAQ or hopefully perform slightly better than the NASDAQ. But if they don't figure out how to get some kind of real currency usage as actual money going, there's only so much speculative capacity in markets. You need like a real solid use case. And yes, saving in a way outside of the banking system is a solid use case, but more and more saving in Bitcoin is kind of like almost saving inside the banking system. So whatever, ranting. Let's go back to price. Yeah, I mean, we can also complain about the Bitcoin price being anemic, but hey, the dominance of Bitcoin is doing quite well still, which implies that everything else is even more anemic than Bitcoin, probably on the verge of death. Probably some of these coins are on the verge of death. I'm not even kidding. Like some coins, like, I mean, we've been talking about it forever. It needed to happen at some point. But they're all still hanging in there, and a lot of them, like, take Litecoin, like not exactly my favorite coin, but people still use it for transfers and buying gift cards and doing stuff like that. Maybe the reason Bitcoin is hanging on so well is because the fees are so low. People can actually kind of use it for stuff, and so people are still kind of using it for stuff instead of going into the altcoins. I don't know, totally speculative. Bcash still doing better than the rest. It looks like a little bit of outperformance on the Bcash side. Everyone else kind of looking about the same. Nothing has really even changed with the rankings hardly for the past 2 months. So I don't know. I think they're with the shitcoins. We talked about the stock market. Let's finish up with some of the macro stuff that we love so much, like gold. Yeah, gold looked like it wanted to go to some new all-time highs, and then it was like, nope, let's just triple top. But you can believe in Santa Claus, you can believe in the Tooth Fairy, but no one believes in triple tops. So this is probably gonna eventually try to go to the upside. Maybe just has to consolidate some more. Let's go to the 2 hour, and we can get some better wave magic resolution. Yeah, so okay. Gold, scrolling backwards. Yeah, so it does look like gold is sort of, I mean, obviously it's setting higher lows, progressively doing this kind of thing, right? So you might want to try and draw a line here. Like if you were a line drawing kind of person, maybe you could draw something that looks, maybe I can't draw something that looks like that. Maybe you try and draw something that looks like this. I see this with gold a lot, actually, where you would maybe try and draw some sort of trend line. It'll break the trend line, and then it'll overcome the trend line. And it was just like a scare. It's crazy how often I see this with gold. It's like just littered through its price history for the past at least 5 years, where you draw a trend line and then it breaks it, and then it does this, it does that, and then you try and draw another trend line, and then it breaks that for a second and then comes back. It's the price fuckery, guys. Like, charts that do that are generally fucked with, right? They're generally suppressed. That's what they're doing. They're trying to manage how quickly gold breaks out, and probably what they're doing is trying to pump the stock market right now while trying to sort of push gold sideways to the greatest extent that they can use their paper gold, on their derivatives platforms, the COMEX and the LBMA, etc. maybe Shanghai. I don't know. There's a question. China wants a higher price for gold, maybe because they got a lot of gold, but they have their own fiat abomination where they're constantly printing money. So maybe they don't want a high gold price either. So maybe they would be apt to manipulate their Shanghai index, which has come about in the past decade. I don't know. Anyways, so this is kind of a spot that you would expect gold. Hey, that should be a bottom if you were trying to swing trade it. Maybe get up here to the upside. Gold should be bullish, but there's a lot in play. Gold should be bullish, but there's a lot in play. So let's see. We're seeing some interesting action on the reverse repos, actually. So let's go to the regular scale. I don't know why that was logarithmic. It should never be logarithmic for this one. Let's save to make sure that doesn't go back that way. Okay, God, this takes forever. Oh, you know why? No, scale to price chart only. Oh, okay, that's fine. All right, finally, at long last, here we are at the reverse repos. So they've seems to have been kind of this big bottom here, so to speak, and things seem to be kind of trying to move back up. You'll notice these spikes are becoming more frequent. Frequent. The spikes are becoming more frequent, where you're getting a shorter time frame in between each spike. So, if we were watching Independence Day, I would be Jeff Goldblum in this case, explaining to you that the spikes are starting to get are going to eventually lead to something else. I guess kind of in reverse, because he was saying that it's going to go away eventually, and that was the countdown clock. In this case, it's a reverse spike, right? And then it looks like things are going to go to the upside here. Actually, I think I would actually call for this in terms of just the way the price action looks here, which would imply that some entities are progressively having more and more tendency to move into reverse repos, which is a risk off move, right? So just understand that these spikes in reverse repos, and if we see sustained action towards the upside, that is a note of concern for us to say, hey, is the macro crash back on, right? What could motivate that? I don't know. Maybe they overturn the Trump tariffs, right? Maybe they say no Trump tariff, or sorry, maybe they overturn striking down the Trump tariffs, which puts them back in place permanently. So that shouldn't happen. But if the court is particularly corrupt, that's what will happen. They are kind of on the sort of Trump side a little bit, at least the court that's doing the review. It shouldn't happen. The word tariff doesn't even appear once in the law that they leveraged to put the tariffs in place, or at least a portion of the tariffs, because they're actually using a framework of laws. But this is a big one that they leveraged recently. The tariff doesn't even appear once in that law, in that legislation. And as we all know, legislation is massive. So if it doesn't appear there even once, then you have to ask, is it really constitutional? Probably not. But Constitution, but still they're supposed to obey it, but they don't. We'll see what we should know here in the next 4 weeks. So what am I saying? If they uphold the Trump tariffs, if they strike down the other court's ruling that the tariffs were not constitutional, and then they put the tariffs in place permanently, macro crash could be back on, guys, right? It could be back on. So we just don't know the news cycle, etc. We don't know what they got in store for us, what they intend to do to us with the markets. I'm just sitting here, Monero and chill, bro. Maybe occasionally have some tether, buy a shit coin here and there. look for some movement. Okay, let me check the XMart chats here. Okay.
I think we have none.
Yeah, there aren't any. We have a YouTube comment. Nah, was like, you mentioned last time, Bowdy, that stocks would go up if oil goes up, and then the Iran attack happened, and it was good insights you had. Thanks, bro. I don't want to claim that I said that because I'm not totally sure that maybe I did say that. It does make, actually I did say that. Yeah, because oil is the lifeblood of the military industrial complex, and having some level of support on the oil price is important for just generally just for markets, right? You don't want to see this anemic oil price where it's just, it's in the doldrums, and because, a lot of stuff is based on the oil economy. So at these levels down here, there was still kind of this hey, there's a danger or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then the Iran stuff happened. And yeah, oil came back to the top side. It's still slightly anemic, at the 65 level, but that's still better than being at 55. So it's enough probably to support, to alleviate the fears and the doubt and the uncertainty about markets. So we had the Iran thing happen. Jesus, it's starting to look so much like theater, guys. Come on. we had, Israel is committing genocide for real, and then they go attack Iran. So you're like, all right, are they going to try and genocide Iran now? And then you're like, well, the United States is also basically Israel most of the time. I think it's a central cabal is basically in charge of both. I don't think Israel controls America, guys. I know there's a lot of hissing going on at computer screens at the moment right now that I say that. You have to understand it's not that simple, and it's a psyop. The whole thing, like half of it's a psyop to be like Israel controls America. Like, no, there's a central cabal of people that control both of them. And yes, it's composed of a certain group of people, but not only that group of people. You guys are just crazy if you think it's, I don't know, genetic or whatever. So probably I just lost at least 10 followers there saying all that. But listen, the point is that, it was kind of a theater, right? Like, we're going to attack Iran, some missiles were flying. Maybe they just wanted to test out their Patriot defense system and like get rid of old munitions that are expiring, and then they need defense budgets. That's often the big reason they do these things, and then they hit Iran, they crushed their nuclear program, but they said 20 years ago they were going to have a nuke in like 2 weeks. And so I don't know, they're a little bit late to the game there, if you ask me. And they've probably been tunneling like every government has been tunneling for decades and decades. So, you probably have no idea where those nukes actually are, if they have them. And Iran should be trying to get nukes, because that's the only countries that the United States doesn't attack. Those are the ones that have nukes. If you don't have nukes, you're going to get invaded effectively. Anyways, so like, do they even know where if Iran has a covert nuclear program, do they even know where that program is? They've had to have been tunneling for 2 decades at this point. So you could probably get at least, a few dozen kilometers underground and move your facilities to some other location. So I don't know. And then Iran was like, hey, we're going to hit you back, but don't worry, it's going to be at 1:00 and it's going to be over here. And then now everything's fine. Like, everything's over. To me, it looks like it was like just enough to appease Trump's base that wanted to saber rattle, that love Israel, God's Israel, and, all that, the Judeo-Christian stuff. And then also to appease, the other people on the right who are like, no, my Jews control the world, right? And then so they attacked Iran, we were strong, and now we're not going to get involved in a quagmire. Okay, like, it just looks like theater, guys. And it also looks like theater as an excuse, as a means of what? Oh, hey, kind of interesting that it did help pump the oil price. And again, like we talked about earlier, using news events, using sentiment to move price. So like, we had the macro crash, we had the macro scare, we had the tariffs and liberation, and oil was still anemic. What do we do? Maybe Iran will close the Straits of Hormuz, pump, and then, okay, oil is still not as high as you would want it to be, but hey, it's better than being down in the 58, 60 range. Now we can play in the 60 to 70 range, and that's better, right, than being down here. So all of that, honestly, that whole cycle could have just at least halfway been just to achieve market effects, right? So I know that's quite speculative. I know I spent a lot of time today kind of speculating mechanisms about what's going on, but everything feels more fake and gay than it has in years. So it's just getting faker and gayer across the board, whether you're talking about Ex Libre and Linux and Xorg, whether you're talking about markets and Trump or attacking Iran, or the fact that it's in vogue now to be fash, right? It's now in vogue to be edgy, edgy anti-Semitic or whatever. Okay, God, it's just it's so retarded. Like, can we just I don't want to have a middle ground fallacy, but can we like take some middle ground here and be like, yeah, there's some bad dudes in control of some things, but like, let's not be actually racist about our conclusions. I would have a lot of other cheeky things to say about that, but I'll refrain. And it has nothing to do with the spat that happened from the past 4 weeks in the Monero community. This is just it's just my musings. You got the Kanye song out there, and it's like, it's a little bit suspicious to me that it seems totally okay to sort of like, and then you've got the left now, they're all like, free Gaza, yay Palestine. And, can we just focus on the thing that actually matters, which is the governments, the actual people that call themselves governments that are doing terrible things, right? And not focus on ethnic groups. That would be my final appeal there with the pattern noticing. All right, I've made it enough references for towards racism for one day. Yeah, how much does racism have to do with markets? I don't know. Maybe a little bit, maybe more than you would suspect. But with that, I don't think there's really anything else here to take a look at. We talked about oil, reverse repos, gold. Maybe we could take a look at global liquidity, I guess, in white global liquidity. So this is when you add up the central bank balance sheets and and the M2 money supply, the global M2 money supply, not just the US dollar. And so you've been seeing the US in green. I put them in green because obviously dollars are green, and then the globe is in white. I don't know why I put them in white, but okay. And the global liquidity has been going up. So there is liquidity available for markets in general. Probably a lot of this could be motivated by Japan. It does seem like the carry trade is back on. In other words, Japan used to have negative interest rates, so they pay you to take loans. So people would take loans in Japan, sell that yen, and then dump it into some other speculative market across the world. Didn't matter, right? It could be Canada, the United States, Europe, whatever. And that's called the carry trade. So it grows during periods of market belief in like that things are going to be good, right? Risk on. Effectively, the carry trade goes up and the Japanese yen goes down because everyone's taking loans in yen, printing yen, and then selling that yen or making some kind of swap with other currencies to invest money. And then in times of global turmoil and uncertainty, that the carry trade unwinds because you still have to pay back those loans. So people pile back into the yen to pay their loans. So the yen actually pumps during global chaos. Anyway, so what I'm saying is that this in white here, this could be, there's probably a reasonable component in here of the carry trade increasing. So that could be one reason that we're seeing extra liquidity, and maybe that's been a lot of the impetus for markets to pump. I should add these two charts together, but anyways, no need to really get too crazy in depth on that one. There's nothing really else here to talk about. The Dixie, I guess, dollar index. It's headed towards these obvious lows or these obvious points. This line right here, we've talked about it. It goes back like 2 decades almost. And Wave Magic would even say probably down here. So, it does look to me like the bias is up. Bitcoin, crypto, Monero, everything should catch a bid here soon. Maybe not this week, but over the next few weeks. Like if you're not long, you want to be long. If you're not long, you need to have something on the table here. So I guess that's about all I got for you guys today. And I don't see any other questions here in the XMR chat. So I will ask Tux and Doug to come back and get the guest on stage and educate us about all the stuff that we need to be educated on, which is a lot, especially if you're me.
Let's see if there's any other comments or super chats. Not really. It's been kind of crickets.
Yeah. I think I even have a crickets. Yeah.
Soundboard. I don't know if I have one on mine. I got some. Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got all the default sounds. I kind of want to add some new sounds, but I don't know. That seems gimmicky.
We got a non super chat you might want to answer. You mentioned last time,
You already
Bloody,
responded to it.
Oh, you did? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we got it. I keep the.
I was playing with the baby in the background. Forgive me.
Okay. I'm getting better about keeping the chats on the side of the screen and occasionally looking back at them.
Okay.
Kind of autistic. I have solid singular focus, but I'm not really good multitasking. So
I don't think anybody's really good at multitasking.
I don't think so either. I think everyone thinks they are. Is Dunning-Kruger.
Exactly.
I'm sure there's some savants out there that can totally like speak and listen and read at the same time, but not many people can do that.
Like a dolphin. All right.
Dolphins can read?
Well, they say they could listen and like speak at the same time or something.